Hey, welcome back, friends. You know, YouTube is a place of extremes, extreme sports, extreme engineering, extreme cuisine. We're joining the club this episode. We have some crazy low elevations, lowest in the Western Hemisphere. We got massive trees, some of the biggest in the world. Stick around. It's gonna be extreme.
In this episode, we cover about 500 miles, 7 days. We leave Las Vegas and hit our next new state, California. We enter California at Death Valley. We're a little worried about getting camping reservations as it's first come, first serve. It's out of season for Death Valley. And we really wanted to get a campsite, especially an electric site because of the heat.
So when we got there, we realized that all the smart travelers had already been there and left to escape the heat. There was maybe 4 other campers in the whole campground. So we had no trouble getting electric site and immediately turned on the air conditioning. Now, this wasn't a temperature for doing any long hikes for certain, or really any hikes at all, but we did enjoy doing a little bit of driving around to some scenic lookouts, got a view of Badwater Basin, and enjoyed the sunset that night before heading back to camp and air-conditioned comfort.
The next morning, we took a drive out to Badwater Basin. This is the lowest elevation in North America at minus 282. You can see where the van is parked just above it on the cliffside. There's a sign that shows where sea level is.
Now, I lied in the intro and said this was the lowest point in the Western Hemisphere. It's not. There's one place that's lower in South America, but this is the lowest point in North America. And when it rains, and the average rainfall here is only about 1.9 inches in a year, when it does rain, this salt basin turns into a lake briefly, then evaporates, turns back into a salt flat. It was pretty neat to go for a walk on it, but it was also pretty warm. We got off there at about 10 a.m., and indeed, you don't want to be out there much later than that.
Death Valley holds the record for the hottest temperature ever. This was actually recorded in Furnace Creek, which is the campground we were staying at, in July in 1913.
On that date, it got up to 134 degrees Fahrenheit or 57 degrees Celsius. Now, when we were there, it was about 42 Celsius, which is about 107, 108 degrees Fahrenheit. So after one night and seeing a few of the sights, mostly from our van, it was time to keep moving.
We left Death Valley and ended up at Lone Pine. Lone Pine is a really picturesque, cute town at the base of the Sierra Nevadas, and we actually camped up in the hills, the Alabama hills right behind it. Beautiful, picturesque campground, views of the Sierras. It was really nice.
We also had a chance to stop at another national monument, Manzanar, which was an internment camp for Japanese Americans during the Second World War. And that was a really interesting, kind of somber stop, but very interesting to see how they lived, the living conditions, how all of that was orchestrated, and just what occurred during that time in America's history. So a really fascinating, brief stop there as well.
On our way out of our campsite in the Alabama hills, we took Movie Road. This kind of a gravel road through some really cool rock formations in the hills. Tons of old westerns, movies and TV shows were filmed here. It started out really cool, not too bad, a little washboardy, and then the road got pretty rough. It was a little much for the van, but we made it through and we got back to Lone Pine, and the van was all intact.
From Lone Pine, we then headed into the mountains and got some relief from the temperatures by climbing to about 7,000 feet of elevation into the Sequoia National Forest. We had a campsite there, and that's right adjacent to the Sequoia National Park, where we spent some time. This was the first of several windy, mountainous roads that we encountered in California, which are kind of fun to drive, but can make you a little bit carsick, even as the driver.
The sequoia trees here are huge. They are the largest tree by volume, by width around. General Grant tree is 12 meters in diameter. They aren't the tallest trees. That's the coastal redwoods, which are kind of more Northern California along the coast. But these trees are really neat to see. It's kind of hard to show you but on video, but it's a really cool thing to see.
We enjoyed a couple hikes through the groves, the House Grove, the Senate Grove. I saw the General Sherman, the General Grant. But like you say, it's hard to convey it in a YouTube video just how big they are. We learned quite a bit about them too, some of their characteristics that make them really fire resistant, among other things, including that their bark can be up to 1.5 feet thick and insulates them, which is just crazy to imagine.
Temperatures were great here, so we did some hiking. We hiked the Little Baldy hike, which gave us some great views of the Sierras and down into some of the groves.
Being camped here for 4 nights straight in the same campsite, and it was a chance to just relax, unwind a bit after having spent some time in the heat in Death Valley after the bright lights of Las Vegas. It was just nice to sit here and do what our friend told us is called forest bathing. So we sat and did some forest bathing, got caught up on some of our YouTubes, and just had a chance to unwind. We also enjoyed the after dinner entertainment that roamed through our campsite all 4 nights.
We've planned for about a month in California, just because it's the farthest away from home on this trip. So we're not sure when we'll get back. So we really wanted to kind of do it right and see a lot of the state. And it's kind of got its extremes.
Let's put some numbers to it here. What have we got for stats for you this time around? We've covered Death Valley, the elevation the lowest in North America at minus 282 feet below sea level, and also the hottest place recorded. We've seen some sequoia, which are the largest trees by volume. The General Grant tree, it's 1,700 years old, the third largest tree in the world. And I love this sort of information on one of the signposts that we saw. It said if the General Grant tree could be filled with sports equipment, it could hold more than 159,000 basketballs or more than 37 million ping pong balls, which I think proves once again the old joke that Americans will use anything other than the metric system. And with 2 more national parks all of a sudden that we've banged out, this brings us to a total of 15 national parks on this trip. We are far from done with the crazy variety that California has to offer. Where are we headed to next?
Next up, we hit the coast. We see tons of sea life. We hit Morro Bay and see the really cute sea otters. We see some very loud barking sea lions. And then we keep going up the coast and see a lot of elephant seals. So stay tuned. If you're an animal lover, you're going to love this episode. Lots of really cool wildlife.
See you on the coast.